All right.
Hey, you made it. I'm glad to see you made it. Can you hear us?
No. Can you hear us, Anna?
I'm here.
There you
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for being here, Anna. I'm sure you are just beyond busy, so we appreciate your time.
So how much of your time do we have?
I have to make a real little, I've got just a little technical difficulty.
The difficulty was.
I've got one of Louise's video presentations playing in the background.
On here?
Yes,
Yeah.
you may. The system is, it's a Shannon thing.
Well, thank you, Shannon.
He does such a good job and he's so sneaky.
We know where it's playing on.
It's a YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Okay.
It's the, there you go.
Ta-da.
All
Do you see
right.
my shades over here? I took them off when I was in here working.
Here,
Ah, they're there. Thank you.
don't lose.
I'm coming, boy.
How is James and Harold doing?
James is doing great. We've found a new protocol that helps him tremendously. He is able to, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, good. You can probably hear too much. Shannon's got his little 4-month-old son with him.
Aw.
Yes, and he's a lusty lad with a zest for living.
Aw.
Yarr! If you hear babies in the background, that's Shannon's little boy. And if you hear dogs in the background, today those are mine.
Well, those are two of the best things to bring people out of, feeling, unwell, right? So if you want to cheer anybody up, babies and pets, especially puppies,
That's
right?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's,
Doesn't get better than that.
we even have a cat now. We even have a kitten, so
Oh.
life is interesting. So I'm glad I finally got a chance to meet up with y'all. Louise, you're in charge. I'm counting on you to lead us through this.
Okay. Now let me ask, how much of that video were you able to watch?
I got through it once and I must have had something where it was recycling, because sometimes I do that so that I can watch something through twice, especially if I'm having trouble catching all the visuals. Just 1 second. This is one of those important calls I do have to take.
Okay. I don't want to have to bombard her with all the rehashing of it, but I will if I have to.
Yeah. I have been drinking my tea for the last 2 or 3 days because it's just my voice is going. I think with all the spraying in the skies, it's I've got a lot of mucus going on. So
It does sound better. You're not all the time, every few minutes like you were at the last call.
right, yeah.
Last national think tank call.
I almost asked her to let's see the baby. I love babies.
Me too. It's funny.
She looks like she's really distracted.
Yeah.
And nowadays, with everything going on as fast as it is, we may have some interruptions like that because people are, trying to do stuff.
Yep.
good.
Needing your time just like us. Sorry.
Mhm. All good.
Or needing my signature and trying to get things, securely transferred in the crazy system of
Mhm.
servers and satellites and all that kind of stuff. So it gets to be a bit crazy, but it is what it
Okay.
is.
So tell me, you said you got through it once. Do you want me to go through it here now, or you want to tell me what you thought of what you saw?
I thought it was really well put together.
Mhm.
Just me being my age and everything. I found that the graphics were a little bit hard to read. I always do better with black print and it just makes a higher contrast for me. And so I wasn't able to catch all of the printing and everything with the first go, and that's why I was looking at it a second time.
Mhm.
So that's just something that you might keep in mind with people of a certain age who have a harder time just with the contrast, so that black letters may not look as nice aesthetically, but they read better. They read it. It's just easier for me to read, and I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Mhm. So as far as the 6 phases, so we know we have the 6 phases plus the one addendum phase. Um, in the graduation of how the phases go, we have that international public notice going out, and then we have the assemblies touring their state with the county tours. Then we have the peacekeeping task force and the peacekeepers getting in front of trying to get a meeting with the corporate heads, meaning the Department of State, Department of Justice, um, President Trump,
Mhm,
the county sheriffs, the governors, those people. Then we
mhm,
have our platforms, which are the American government official website, the 1776 union.tv platform, and the 1776.com blog news site platforms. Then we have culmination is that 3-day event, taking the public stage. What did you think about all that put together?
Well, I think it's kind of amazing. I, ultimately, that is what we have to do, right? It's just a matter of the timing of it.
Mhm.
Right now, we're in the final stages of basically making a huge move with our treasury activity.
Mhm.
So I'd like to get that done so that we have money and so that we are not, constantly scraping and, just not having all that we need in terms of, being able to print pamphlets or, do all that kind of work.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously, a lot of this work
Mhm.
plays into that too, because a lot of the things that we've done as graphics that people can print off or take a screenshot of, or whatever they're going to do, we can also do in hard copy as print items to be able to hand out.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, what we had already set up some years ago was to have kind of, you're probably all too young to remember, but back in the day, what we used to do is we'd take kind of like a traveling road show, and we'd go and we'd do, they were called chautauquas, or they were sort of like revivals, you know. You'd take a touring group and you'd go through an entire region, you know, and there'd be 5 or 6 different touring groups, and they all had the same basic programs, and they're all distributing the same information. And whether you're doing it for Jesus or for the government, the actual people of the country, it's very much the same shtick.
Yeah,
Where,
that
you
is it.
know,
Mhm.
you're going in, you're setting up in a high school auditorium, or any public space that you can rent, and you're doing skits, and you're doing musical numbers and getting everybody kind of tied into the spirit of the thing.
Mhm,
And then you've got all the material that you're distributing along with it.
mhm.
And, part of that is the computer stuff, the addresses on the computer, but part of it is something they can hold in their hand, take home and read,
Mhm.
because we got learners that are, oriented more and more toward the spoken word. And then we've got the old folks like me that are more oriented toward the written word.
Mhm, mhm.
And of course, worst comes to worst, the electricity goes out, you still have the
The
book,
book. Now, were,
you know.
were you
And
able to go through the questions?
uh, I wasn't quite sure which questions you were talking about because I've got like several different emails from you that have different lists of questions. And I'm assuming that you want me to answer all of them. So was there something specific for tonight that I need to go through with you now?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to see where I need to start with you at. I'm sharing my screen here, Tammy.
Go for it.
Now, how much time do we have for with you?
Well, as much time as you need.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. All right. So it sounds like you went through the whole thing there, and I'm not going to rehash it all if you don't need me to rehash it all. But we need certain things answered in order for us to launch the project. Now, let me make this bigger.
Okay. What we did is we sued them for breach of trust, and that's where you get the final judgment and civil orders in April of 2014. It's published in our book Disclosure 101.
Okay, so I'm going to go here to the website.
So
Is
there
it
was
this one
um
with the public lien, the judgment and findings? These?
let's see, estate claim, public and private lien, let see.
Want me to open one of them?
No. Those are all subsidiary things. What I'm talking about is in Disclosure 101, there is it's called Final Judgment and Civil Orders.
Okay, I know which one
And
you're talking about. Mm-hmm.
that is where we actually um, brought the whole due process to an end. And we said, okay, well, you're in breach of trust and you are in violation of your service contract.
Okay. And is that a land jurisdiction claim or an Admiralty Maritime jurisdiction claim? Judgment.
It's a judgment in Admiralty Maritime. It
Oh,
was it was processed the first. Okay, you have to kind of visualize this in terms of unraveling something. You know, the maximum of law, the maxim is as a thing is bound, so it is unbound.
Mhm.
And so they took us off the land, which is international jurisdiction, and they slipped us over into the international jurisdiction of the sea. And from there, they slipped us over into the global jurisdiction of the air.
Mhm.
So the pathway went from air, well, it went from land to sea to air via the sea. Okay. So in order to unravel it, we had to go from air to air sea and from sea to land.
Mhm.
Now, there are two pathways in air jurisdiction. You can get to the air by the sea, or you can get to the air via the land.
Mhm.
But because of the way this was done, we had to re-enter the system from air to sea and from then sea to land. Okay. So the very first actions that we started with were all actions in air jurisdiction, because that's where we were after they'd done all their their various registrations and certifications and done all of this processing to human traffic us into the air jurisdiction. So then we began in the air jurisdiction where we found ourselves, right?
Mhm.
And we went through the whole business with the Pope. We went through the old UCC thing. We went through the lien process. We went through due process in their jurisdiction. We gave everybody notices. We went around and talked about this. We shook hands. We tried to come to some agreement about how we were going to correct this. And the Pope was very amenable to correcting it and had set up a pretty good plan for correcting it rapidly. But then he got sick and abdicated and turned it over to Francis. And Francis dropped the ball, okay? And I'm sure that's just because of the instructions he was given, because they bifurcated the office.
Mhm.
What should have happened under Pope Benedict's original plan or his original expressed intent was they were going to set up a regional postmaster position, carve up the world into regions instead of countries, and use that regional postmaster's position to establish some degree of oversight and control over the national postmasters. And that would then allow them to do what they called open up the storehouses of the Lord. And what they were going to do was they were going to then return all this money and profit that they had been making and collecting to the individual people that it belonged to and to the individual governments that it belonged to. So that we would have something to see us through the end time chaos, because they knew it was going to turn into a mess, right?
Mhm.
And so they named a guy named James Thomas McBride to be the regional postmaster for North America. And they officially opened up the divine province, is what they called it. And the reason is that they were opening up kind of the back door connection between the air jurisdiction and the land jurisdiction. And just kind of doing an end run around the sea jurisdiction entirely.
Oh.
See? And it would have worked.
You want me to watch this and take notes?
If you would,
Okay.
can you?
Like 2 hours long, but yeah.
Well, I know.
I'm just gonna go home, put it on the big screen, watch it, take notes while I'm there.
All right, you and
You're a little man. That way there's less squawking out here for you.
have good time.
Yeah, I'll get that. I can put that on this.
Okay, Shannon, I'll call you later, okay?
Oh, give me a holler when you're all done.
So anyway, it would have worked well. And people have a lot of trouble understanding jurisdictions and which jurisdictions apply and all of that sort of thing, but it's really pretty simple. Just think about it in terms of the earth that you can observe, right?
Mhm.
You have soil, which is the top 6 inches of the land, and that's your national jurisdiction. Below that, the land is international jurisdiction, and it's controlled by whoever owns the soil above it, right? And so you've got the land as an international jurisdiction, and you've got the sea that's an international jurisdiction. And over it all, you have the air, right? So if you were standing there on a beach, you'd see the land, you'd see the sea, and you'd see the air above it. And it's pretty obvious that you can get to the air from the sea or from the land, either way, right? But since we had been human trafficked via the sea, and we could pass through the air to get back to the land, that was another route, right? We didn't have to go laterally from sea to land. we could just avoid the whole thing and go to the, since we started in the air, we could go from the air back to the land via the air, via the divine providence, right? So that was the plan, was to just get us back on the land with all of our rights and benefits and avoid the whole business of tracking back through the sea jurisdiction at all. And that would have given us our money, that would have given us our credit, that would have given us our land rights, it would have given us our assets back, and we wouldn't have to battle with the king, the queen, the Lord Mayor, the inner city of London, the bankers, or anything.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, the Pope had a wonderful plan, but the FBI came in, and one of the things was James Thomas McBride was given the seal of St. Peter, like the great seals of the United States and the United States of America. They came in and they stole this from James Thomas. And they threw him in jail, and they, you know, they just treated him horribly. And by the time he got out of prison, he was very ill. He had a heart problem, and they hadn't given him his meds while he was in prison, and he died shortly thereafter. I'm still going after Kash Patel to burp up the seal of St. Peter, and also to go and retrieve the great seals of the United States and the United States of America from the Global Federal Reserve governors in the Philippines. Because
And
those are artifacts that belong to us, damn it.
Mhm.
are they receptive, Anna? Is Kash Patel receptive to you?
I don't know if he's receptive or not yet. It's a new demand on him as a new officer, so I expect it'll take a while for him to, you know, even become aware of it. But
Now,
we
what is that connection, the seal of St. Peter, to the Pope and to the control of what the Pope was doing? What's the seal of St. Peter mean?
the seal is what we need. We have the authority. It was never rescinded. Okay. It was set up before Francis, and Francis's office is limited because Benedict the 16th retained the sacred office. He retained the ministerial office. And so he retained the ministerial office and split off what would have been the office of the Roman pontiff. And it's very evident that he must have told Francis to circle the wagons and take care of the church, you know, and clean up the mess that was caused by the office of the Roman pontiff, which is another whole deal. That has nothing to do with us per se. And it was huge. It was absolutely huge. So I can see why Benedict did that. But without Benedict, the seal of St. Peter was vouchsafed to James Thomas McBride. It becomes part of James Thomas McBride's estate, right? And James Thomas had an irrevocable trust and will similar to mine. And so the will provides for the action to be taken anyway.
Mhm.
So, you know, what we're doing by regaining that seal, which the FBI never had any right to take, okay, and making it part of his estate and will, then that route, that back route, can be opened up, and people can then get back on the land via the air.
Well, who would open it up if McBride is gone?
his will. It would be part of the probate of his estate. So, his will comes into play, and then we just employ the seal of St. Peter as the authority.
Mhm.
You see, he made up a will of what his will in this matter was before he died.
Mhm.
Who did he give these seals to or entrust with them?
Well, the FBI stole the seals and stole as much as they could, but it turns out that he left his will and his sovereign letters patent and documents he entrusted to a friend. And so the friend has all the documents, and I'm just going after the seal from the FBI, and we don't really need the physical seal, but it just offends me
Mhm.
that they stole something like that and that they hampered what was in effect a mission of justice and mercy to get people back to their right jurisdiction and give them their property.
Mhm. Mhm. Well,
So,
if we don't need the physical seal, couldn't the family member invoke the will?
well, it's a public will, right? So, those that were part of the divine province um, can invoke the will.
Mhm.
And there were like 900 of us
Mhm.
that originally uh, signed up as, to go through this route, to use that doorway back to the land, retain our benefits or beneficial standing as, um, I guess you would say, inheritors of the trust.
Mhm.
And so um, there's a substantial number of people there, and I'm in contact with some of them. And
Mhm.
our plan is to simply just invoke the will
Mhm.
and go from there.
So tell us more about the plan. I mean, how are you all going to do that? Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
you've got a choice.
Mhm.
You can do what we've been doing, which is to fight your way back through the sea jurisdiction to get to the land, okay?
Mhm.
Or you can go through the air, and go from, because you just imagine the landscape in front of you. You got the land on one side, you got the sea on the other, you got the air above, right? Well, what can you do? You can go from air to sea, or you can also go from air directly to land,
Mhm.
right?
So you're
So,
approaching it on both sides. You're approaching it from the sea and from the air. And
right.
depending on who's going, how soon you're going to get it from one or the other is going to determine how fast we get our stuff back.
Well, and because you can go in either direction,
Mhm.
okay, once we get this straightened out on the air side, because you can go from either direction, you can avoid all of the nastiness
Mhm.
of the sea jurisdiction.
Mhm.
Because the sea jurisdiction are where you fight it out in the courts. All of those courts are maritime and admiralty. And so you can avoid having to settle anything with them. You can avoid having to, um, you can just ignore them. And that's a good thing. That's a wonderful place to be.
So Anna, when all these people, the Q movement and whatnot, when they were talking about let the tribunals begin, that's something that we actually want to avoid, correct?
I talked to the kids that were doing Q, and my impression of them was that they were young and patriotic. They were, at most Iraqi war veterans, and most of them were a lot younger than that. I mean, we're talking about people in their late 20s and 30s. And
Wow.
so they got involved in this. And for example, they were shown the aerial view of JFK's tomb.
Yep.
It's in the form of a Q, there's a driveway around it that is in the
Yep,
form of a
I've
giant
seen it.
Q. Well, they didn't understand that that meant queen,
Green, right?
you know?
You wrote an article about that, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I did, and I told them that too. I said, that is telling you as clear as day that the queen killed him,
Right.
you know? And why would you want to have your name associated with Q, which
Mhm.
means Q as in queen, as in QE2, as in QE1, as in, no, you don't want to be associated with anything British, because then you're being associated with British Tories. See,
Right,
we
right.
talk about Tories. Well, that's just a shortening of the words British territorials.
Right.
Okay, so Tory is just a nickname for British territorial citizenry. And
Yeah, and ironically, I've heard that word before. So when you started pointing it out in your articles and in your book about the Tories, I said, I remember learning that in history. I don't know why that stuck with me, but I remember that. So it was quite interesting. But when when I do outreach, I tell people all the time, I envisioned when I learned about this in history, the Revolutionary War, is that my vision in learning when I was in high school was that all the British people got on their boats and went back home. And so it wasn't a surprise learning that there were many different citizens here and they all stayed, and that our founders had to figure out a way to determine who was who. And so, the Declaration, the 1779 Declaration Act was, is interesting to me. But, when I tell people in my outreach events, when I tell them that, the light bulbs start coming on for them too. So, yeah, it's fun to learn all the things that, we didn't learn in school. I could tell you, Anna, that I was not a history buff in high school because all they wanted to teach us was about wars and to memorize the name of the colonels that won those wars. So for me, I could care less about the killing and the murdering of people and who did it. So I never took an interest to history, but I could tell you right now, history is probably one of my favorite things to learn about because I'm learning the truth. So I appreciate you and all that you're bringing forward for us. But I wanted to ask you, when you were bringing up the court case initially with this conversation, is it because you want us to put that on this website?
well, if you're talking about, how did these claims get established? Okay.
That would be the
The,
first one.
no, the first one would be the UCC claims, because you start out in air, right? And Uniform Commercial Code is air.
Yeah, you have that on there, right, Louise?
I got the UCC,
Okay.
so I'm gonna
Yeah,
go here.
the
So here
U,
we got the UCC, this one, right?
yep,
This one?
yep,
Yeah,
yep,
okay.
yep, yep, yep.
So for
And
lien, I'll put that one, but for the claim, we want the orders. What's it called? Private orders?
it's the
Judgment
final
orders?
judgment and civil orders.
Yeah, final judgment.
Now, the final judgment and civil orders,
Make it civil
that
judgment.
goes into the other side, that goes into the British territorial side. So to make the claim in the air jurisdiction was a matter of talking to people, taking it before the Pope informally, uh, getting a plan together and making it work. But as you can see, this is final judgment and civil orders, upper lower case.
So
And
on the website, for Admiralty Maritime Jurisdiction claim, the lien would be the UCC, linked to that, and this claims should be linked to the judgment,
Yeah, well,
this judgment,
no, no,
or call it judgment
there are
instead of
different
claim.
sets of liens here, Louise.
Ah,
There's the liens that we made on the UCC. You see, there's the Federal Reserve System in all caps, right?
mhm,
E pluribus unum, the United States of America, all caps. All these things in all caps are municipal corporations, and they're all in the air jurisdiction. All right?
Mhm.
But if you go through the UCC process, you can also bring claims against upper and lower case names. So there are two entire sets of lien processes, 3 each. And some of them are against municipal corporations, and some of them are against British territorial corporations, depending on how they're styled. Now, this one happens to be entirely against the municipal corporations, right? But there are corollary
Ones for the British.
claims that go against the British.
Now, did you publish those?
Oh, yeah, they're all published.
Well, this is the one I got out the book.
Yeah,
I don't know
is
any
where
other
we,
ones.
this was the very first thing we started with.
Mhm,
This is number 1.
mhm.
And there's an earlier version in 2011, but this is the one that really stuck.
Okay.
And all of this stuff, because of the way it's written and the way that it's the creditors are set forth, they all go into my land jurisdiction trust, which had already been established.
Mhm.
Okay, so all this stuff just rolls over.
So what do you think, what I want to do here is to show the evidence of the Admiralty Maritime and land jurisdiction claims.
Okay, well,
Now, mhm,
they're kind of together because the land jurisdiction claim is against Admiralty Maritime. But you also have to have the claims against the air jurisdiction.
and which documents would go up here?
Boy, I would have to really sit down and think about that because they're all, actually, you could just X out Admiralty Maritime Jurisdiction Claim and Lien and just describe it all as land jurisdiction claim and lien.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, that's what I did, is I claimed back everything in air and sea to the land.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I had to do it in sequence. So I started in the air jurisdiction, and I did all the different kinds of liens in the air jurisdiction and served the due process on that. Then I served all the due process in Admiralty Maritime and did all the liens on that,
Mhm.
and then rolled all of that up into basically 2 super trusts, one public, one private,
Mhm.
and then used my irrevocable will, published my irrevocable will in the matter, so
Mhm.
that upon my death or upon resolution, all these things have to be perfected.
So
And
I'm sorry.
so we've got a real good situation here in that we have everything kind of backlashed and backstopped so that no matter what happens.
We're gonna get our stuff back.
Yes,
So
exactly.
how you described all the liens and all the jurisdiction, rolled them up into the land claim. Can I get that documentation?
Actually, what it is a we already had a public trust,
Mhm.
and the public trust is the holding company. The United States of America Unincorporated is a holding company and trust. Okay, so we already had that established, and all we had to do was properly reference it. And then, because I didn't know what else to do at the time, and there was nobody else standing there, I created a personal trust that subsumes all of the names
Okay.
and then brings that under a private heading with a private trust.
Mhm.
And all this stuff is under my names,
Mhm.
and it's all set up in such a way that everything rolls into what's called a Roman superior trust.
Okay.
And you always hear about Roman inferior trust. Well, mine all rolls into a Roman superior trust. And from there is no higher authority in the legal system anywhere.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that trust has to be administered according to my irrevocable will.
So the evidence that you use to prove you have all the claims in admiralty, maritime, and land jurisdiction, what would be the best evidence to link this to? So you said to X out the admiralty, leave just land jurisdiction claim.
Yeah, land jurisdiction, claim, and lien, and then understand that there are two whole sets. There's a whole set of land jurisdiction claims and liens that pertain to air jurisdiction, municipal corporations. And then there's another whole roster of claims and liens against admiralty maritime entities. So there's
How
two
many
complete
documents is
sets.
that?
Oh, geez.
That's a lot.
Louise, we're talking about hundreds
Ah,
of documents. We're talking about 10 years of correspondence with
okay.
mailing receipts, and
So
it's
what would you want to be used as evidence on that link?
well, I gave the starting in the air jurisdiction,
Okay.
and from there people can look it up and they can follow and they can see all the many filings.
Okay.
And they'll, if they're listening to me, they'll understand that the all capital letters names are municipal corporations, and the upper lowercase are British territorial corporations operating in admiralty and maritime jurisdictions. So
So
wherever you see that, that's the demarcation. And each one of those liens had to be processed unless there was some specific reason why. Each of those had to be processed through 3 iterations. You would start out with one of 2 different lien types that would be a notice. You would have one that would be some sort of a fiscal lien, and then you would have a actual material lien. So depending on which box you checked, you're setting up different kinds of liens. Those UCC forms are they're very interesting. They can be used for a wide variety of different kinds of liens and purposes. But anyway, we locked down all these different kinds of liens in all these different jurisdictions, and you know, and
if
then I also had to lock down my trust, my Roman Superior Trust, and I had to go back all the way to Illinois, to Winnebago County, Illinois, and pay this piddly $10 tax to the Queen because she was holding us all ransom for $10.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah, it's this petty reconveyance tax. For $10, you have to reconvey all your stuff back from sea to land. You still have to pay this petty little $10 tax. And so I had to go to Winnebago County, Illinois, which was the only, other than, there was one county in Georgia. But Illinois is where all this stuff kind of came push to shove, because that's where the Bar Association was. And so had to go to Winnebago County, Illinois, and pay this $10 tax.
Oh
You,
my
you know, you couldn't make this stuff up if you
Your
tried.
plane ticket and your travel costs more than this.
What is this document?
Let's see. That is a vast, vast restatement of everything that was presented as the all of the background. This whole thing is a series of presentments to the Vatican Chancery Court, and the Vatican Chancery Court has it's distributed it goes worldwide. It's read by all of the various governments, and especially in terms of the Roman government, the Roman Curia. The Vatican Chancery Court decides all issues of, who owns what. If it's a material object, they're the ones that decide. Land, gold, silver, anything like that. It's in their authority. It's in their bailiwick to decide. And then the Roman Curia is the one that decides things about the corporations that they created. Because all this goes back to the church. If once you dig down to it and you look what the system is, the church created all of it. The Vatican Chancery Court maintains the court for living people and their physical assets. The Roman Curia maintains the court and the administration over all the different kinds of corporations. And so you've got two different authorities. Call them the things that are actual and factual have one kind of law and one kind of ultimate court. And the things that are imaginary have two kinds of imaginary courts.
So what was the outcome with this?
That was total agreement with us.
Okay. Do you have the one? So I got this. Can I get the copy with your signatures on it?
Well, what you're seeing right here, this fancy one,
Yeah.
this was made by Max.
Oh, okay.
And we actually sent this, each one of these articles that are in the table of contents, they were actually sent, each one of them were sent as hard copy to the Vatican Chancery Court, and each one of them were sent. And so this is like a compendium. And certainly, I can sign this and give you a final page. But we haven't actually published this as a single printed document, if that makes sense.
So did the Vatican Chancery Court respond in writing?
What they did is they issued a series of corrective actions, because well, we really need to send this as a compendium, but the, in fact, would you send me a copy of this? But what happened is they looked at all of this and they read through all of it as it was being published. And then they took 3 different actions, one for air, land, and sea.
Mm.
And each one of those actions released the assets to us and put an end to the lawfare from their side. So they responded with action. There wasn't an order. There were 3 different orders, but they were not addressed to a specific action because we didn't present it that way. We didn't do a compendium in actual fact. Each of these things was addressed in an article that was signed. And so, besides which, they all know me, right? So it was more a matter of, okay, let's get this done. And so they issued a series of administrative, and the Pope issued several different things that basically resolved the issues that were presented by giving us back our country, giving us back all our material assets. Any claims to them elsewise have been removed. And, we still had to do a lot of work for ourselves throughout this entire process. When I first brought this up to the local priest, and he's sitting there with a headache like everybody else going, "Oh, stop talking, you're driving me crazy. I can't take it all in, right?" And so when he did finally have it, he looked at me and he said, "But it's your fault."
Seriously? That's his response?
Well, he was the first, but he wasn't the last to say it either. And their point, we have to give them the point that this is something that only we can do for ourselves, right? We have to provide our own courts. The reason that we don't have courts for people is that we're not providing courts for people, right? The reason we're being taxed without our credit being applied to the books is that we never set up our own treasury and actually took the steps necessary to launch a new currency. We never actually stood forward as the owners of all this stuff that had been trafficked. And as long as we didn't do that, nobody could do it for us. Think about it. If you're the heir of an estate, nobody else can come forward and say that they're the heir of an estate, right?
Yep.
We had to do that for ourselves, and that's what he meant was, if things are funky and things are misapplied and things are misadministered, and if we've made mistakes and done wrong things with the money and with the credit, it's actually your fault, America, because you fell asleep at the wheel. You didn't stand up and do this, and we couldn't do it for you. And he's absolutely right in that they couldn't do it for us. And not really.
Well, they could have told the truth. I know you told them that, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I said, yeah, you could have come forward and you could have talked to the people of this country in a straightforward way and, alerted us that we needed to do this.
Instead of chasing y'all down and shooting and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wouldn't that have been nice? But actually, it wasn't the church that did that. That was the British Tories. that was Ulysses S. Grant, otherwise known as U.S. Grant, who
Yeah.
took that name as a nom de guerre while he was still at West Point. His actual name was Hiram.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
And so, yeah, doesn't it kind of make you stop and think U.S. Grant,
Right.
Grant of the U.S.
He got it all, huh? We
Yeah,
granted it to him.
they always tell us what they're doing right in plain sight.
Well,
Now
and
he's,
just think about how diabolical these guys really are.
Yeah.
You know, the greenback swindle. I was explaining that to someone last night. You know, how slick. Get you to trade your gold for their IOUs, use their IOUs to purchase a bond that as an investment. And then when you come to get your gold back, they say, well, what did you purchase these bonds with? Federal Reserve notes or greenbacks or USN notes or, you know, whatever kind of note. You purchase the bond with the note. Why would you expect to get anything back but notes?
Yep.
so the three actions that the Pope took, was the moto popery or poper, whatever that's called. Was that
Motu
one of the actions?
proprio.
Was
That
that
was
one? Of,
that was part of it. But that was there were other things that were then published that were directions for the change of the administration, and they're sort of scattered throughout all of the Vatican news agency stuff.
okay.
So we really didn't have a problem getting the church to respond. We had a problem with their efforts being undercut by the FBI. We had a problem with the FBI targeting James Thomas McBride. We had a problem with Pope Benedict being elderly and pooping out on us. You know, we had all sorts of other problems, but, you know, at least we know what the problems were and why they existed.
So how is it that so if the Pope and the Queen have a partnership, 60-40,
Yep.
how is it that we got our land and properties back from the Pope, but didn't get it back from the Queen?
Well, that's the other part of the swindle. You got to think about this step by step. You start out as an American baby, and you've been born on the land and soil of an American state, right? Your mother signs off and says you're a U.S. citizen, thinking that, you know, a state citizen of the United States, right? Not understanding that there's other kinds of United States citizens. So, and it's not explicit in the paperwork. So she signs off on this, yeah, my baby's a United States citizen, without specifying what kind of United States citizen anyway, you know, very open-ended, non-disclosed, not explicit. And from that point on, what they do is they create what's called an American infant decedent estate. And you can be a decedent in terms of an inheritance, whether you die or whether you waive your interest in that estate. So what they claim is that your mother waived your interest in your American estate, and that creates this intestate American infant decedent estate that becomes a public trust administered by bar attorneys. And at the same time that they do that, leaving your American inheritance abandoned, waived, right? Then they also create a British territorial seaman's trust. Okay. And in all of the cases, this British seaman has a different birthday. Now, for example, in my paperwork, I was born June 6, 1956. My British territorial doppelganger was born June 24th, 1956. All right, so this British person, this legal fiction entity, is a warrant officer in the British Merchant Maritime Service. Not an admiralty, not a Navy man. We're talking about a warrant officer in the Merchant Marines, British Merchant Mariner. And he is, guess what? He is employed as a taxpayer. And a taxpayer in the British Merchant Marine is someone who collects taxes and tariffs and returns the receipts to the king's treasury. Okay? So they set up this phony British maritime person, and after 7 years, they declared that that person is missing. They don't know where he went or what she's doing. They're AWOL, right? Presumed lost at sea, and they create a British seaman's estate, which is administered under Admiralty law, because that's one of the 4 things that Admiralty law actually has jurisdiction over, is seamen's estates. Okay, and so within 7 years or thereabout, you're declared legally dead as a British territorial seaman, and the estate resulting from that is also intestate.
Mhm.
He just disappears over the horizon. Don't know what happened to the guy. Okay? So then, because it's intestate, and because we don't know what happened to this poor guy, the Roman civil service comes in and says, okay, well, we believe this was a dual federal citizen, meaning that he was, there was this British merchant mariner here, but there was also this municipal citizen of the United States. This person had dual citizenship. So on the Roman side of it, they create what's called a sesquique or sesquique trust. And that's the same kind of trust that happens when there's a disaster and people are missing, don't know where they are, and they create a public trust of this kind to hold the assets of the missing person.
Mhm.
Okay, so now all of your stuff is bundled up. Part of it is being held by the British territorial, the warrant officer in the British Merchant Marines estate, right? And part of it is being held by the sesquique trust that the municipal government sets up. So you're considered a federal dual citizen, and you have 2 estates.
Okay. So,
Okay.
so I'm asking, okay, you said the Pope in the air jurisdiction gave us our stuff back. But there's still this municipal territorial partnership going on. But in the municipal is the air jurisdiction with the Pope, isn't it?
Right.
So how is he going to give us our stuff back and still keep our stuff? Is it because of the birth registrations?
Again, it's our fault. Now we have to step forward and claim our own stuff out of the slush pile, or we have to have a fiduciary who's going to do it for us and then allow us to come back, right?
Okay.
Okay.
We'll get there.
No,
Okay.
let's look at this, how this is going to happen.
Okay.
For people that don't make a claim on their own stuff, the Sestake Trust, the Roman Sestake Trust, is going to be liquidated, right? Because the municipal government is going away, right? And all of
Is
its
that part of
franchise.
him giving us our stuff back?
Well, yeah, but
Okay.
remember, so far as the air jurisdiction knows, it wasn't our stuff. It was stuff that was commingled with the British territorial seaman's estate. See the progression? The American infant descendants estate isn't even in the picture. They think they're giving it back to the British territorial seaman's estate. So the Roman Sestake Trust collapses upon the liquidation of the municipal entity, right? So all these Sestake trusts are rolling back into the British Territorial Seamen's Trust that gave rise to them, right?
Yeah.
So here's the deal. The Pope says, oh, I don't know what's going on here. I give it all back, right? And here's the British with their hands out, ready to catch it. You know, it's all going to just roll back in to the British Territorial Seamen's Estate under Admiralty law. They're going to catch it all, and then they're going to split it with the Pope 60-40. You see, it's
No.
yeah, right. No, I'm dead serious. That's what they have set up. That's how they were going to work it. And they were going to do this in such a way that the British king would come in after a period of years and claim all of those seamen's estates as abandoned property.
Okay.
Once
that's-
again, where are all those lost merchant mariners? You know,
So that's double talk. That's double talk.
it's a double play. It's a double con game. It's a scheme.
Okay.
A trust. What would you call it? A reversionary trust scheme
Okay.
with a fictitious claim on abandonment. And the actual estate is still here in America, and they're going to try to do an abandonment claim on that too at the same time. And this is all done under a form of law, Roman civil law. And the specific thing that they use to do this is called bono vacantia. And it's the right of the king to receive back intestate estates. You know, if you die and you don't have a testament, a last will and testament, then the king, after a certain number of years, can come back in, claim it as abandoned property, and receive it for his own benefit. And there's been a recent scandal of Prince Charles doing exactly that in Northumbria, in Britain.
Mhm.
So this is the kind of two-fisted game that they're playing, and the Pope is acting like Pontius Pilate and washing his hands, right, and saying, I don't know who this stuff belongs to, but you know they've got a good argument here, and as far as I'm concerned, they can have all their stuff back. And the king is sitting there waiting, you know, going to catch those estate trusts and roll them back into the British Territorial Seamen's Estate and keep them under Admiralty law long enough that he'll be able to place a claim on abandonment on them. And when he makes a claim on abandonment on the British Territorial Estate, at the same time, it'll kick in on the American infant descendant estate. Because remember, this is going to go rolling all the way back because we're going to push it all the way back, right? So they're going to have to, thanks to us, they're going to have to go all the way back to America and to the American infant descendant estate underlying the British territorial estate. When they get to the American infant decedent estate, they're going to try to lay low in the weeds for 7 years after this whole thing blows over and come back and claim our whole country under a claim of abandonment, under bono vacantia. And there you are. Then they own the entire country without shedding a drop of blood or making
Mhm.
any big stir. They just come in and
So why did the king not uphold what the Pope already did?
well,
Why didn't he bring that forward when the bankruptcy happened, when the municipal finally collapsed? Why wasn't the Pope's
will
action done?
honored.
Mhm.
Well, remember, our pathway from the air jurisdiction to the land was blocked by the FBI's action and all the interference they created for James Thomas. So our way through the air jurisdiction back to the land was blocked. And that meant the only way that we could get back to the land was by going through the sea. We had to
So-
come back, that way.
So the king didn't have to listen. He just can do whatever he wants.
Well, the king has to listen, but what they want us to have to do is to individually, one by one, make declarations and reclaim our estates.
We'll get that done. Okay.
And we are doing that.
Mhm.
But you can see there's what, 50,000 of us that have done it,
Mhm.
and there's 320 million Americans.
Mhm. Mhm.
They still stand to win big if they can pull it off.
Mhm.
And, it's our business to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing and they don't get a chance to pull it off.
Well, while we're on that one, I'm going to skip to that question I have with that. So, in our public law,
Mhm.
in these first 3 paragraphs, wait a minute, not this one. In these first 3 paragraphs, it sounds like to me we were outlawing GMOs, but it sounds like to me that we outlawed birth registrations.
Well, we're basically saying that, yes,
Okay, so my
that's
strategy,
us.
my strategy was to tell the public that we outlaw birth registration and not allow birth registrations in the hospitals anymore.
Well, and that's right. I mean, when you get right down to it, where's the core of this all coming from is from that initial birth registration instead of a birth recording,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And when you go and you talk to the doctors, they're totally unaware that the paperwork that they're signing as witnesses for the king, they don't know that they're signing as witnesses for the king. They're not given any disclosure. They're they're presented with a little form that's only about, I
Mhm.
don't know, maybe 4 by 5, just a little tiny thing of, and it's actually a declaration, as in a customs declaration, and
Mhm.
he's signing it as a medical doctor. Well, in the British system, in British Admiralty and Maritime, a doctor outranks all lawyers and judges. A doctor outranks a public notary, and a
Mhm.
doctor who is a coroner is the supreme highest rank in the what they call the civilian military service,
Mhm.
which is another one of their ugly oxymorons. But anyway, they call this the civilian military service. And by getting the doctor involved, his signature not only counts for 2 witnesses, with your mother being a 3rd witness, but it automatically takes the matter outside of the court system. When he signs as witness, then he's the superior officer in their system. And none of the judges, none of the attorneys, none of those guys can come forward and even question what their superior officer did. If they did, they'd be insubordinate.
So we can use this public law and bring it forward in outlawing birth registrations.
Yes, absolutely. And,
Okay.
you know, we have every right to do that.
Mhm.
But here's the problem, getting them to obey it,
We'll get,
getting them to, you
that's
know,
what our peacekeepers got to figure out.
yeah, you know, and it's this whole thing, this whole farce, this entire fraud has been done one by one by one by one.
Mhm.
And, you know, I just had a discussion earlier this afternoon with a young patrolman, a state trooper. He has absolutely no education in the law. He doesn't know the difference between a public law and a statute. He doesn't know the difference between an actual law for people and a, you know, a regulation.
Mhm.
And he's not taught.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
you know, he's out there doing his best, according to the light he has, you know, trying to enforce all these statutory laws on what he mistakenly identifies as commercial vehicles, which aren't commercial vehicles.
Mhm.
Well,
You
it
know?
doesn't help, Anna, when we have investment firms that are actually the publishers of the training manuals for the police force.
Mhm. Mhm.
Why is an investment firm publishing those manuals?
Mhm.
Why does
Well,
the Roman Catholic Church have a copyright on the Holy Bible?
so in getting it actually enforced, that's where I came in with the teeth strategy by telling all the public the in the video, you would hear me say the teeth strategy. That's us in the public meetings telling the public that birth registrations are outlawed and giving them the empowerment to talk to or send letters or affidavits to the senators, the representatives, to the county police, the county sheriffs, telling them, oh, I'm not being complicit with the crime, because this is human trafficking. I'm not being complicit with the crime. This birth registration I did not know about. It was human trafficking, and that type of thing. Telling the public that this is what they have to do, because
Yep.
you have to state that you're not complicit with the crime, and this is
Right.
a crime.
Oh, yeah, it is a crime.
Mhm.
And if you don't stand up and you don't protest it, then they get to do whatever they want.
Mhm.
And you're an accomplice to it. And, you know, I had my moments of being kind of weak-kneed when I started realizing all this stuff. I was scared. I mean, who wouldn't be? You know, you're just one little person. Um, so, but what you find out is that if you don't do it, you are complicit. You're an accomplice to it. You become guilty of the crime. And that's part of what is so insidious about the way they did this.
Mhm.
Because now you've got all these people who are knowingly or unknowingly acting as accomplices to, well, and these are major felonies. These are the punishments for what they're doing are severe. I mean, we're talking about life in prison. We're talking about capital punishment. Um, you know, and so here are all these unwitting people being basically snookered into committing these horrendous crimes, and they're totally ignorant of it. They don't know that they're doing anything wrong. It's like the concentration camp guards at Dachau. Oh,
Right.
well, we didn't know. We were just following orders,
Mhm.
you know? And it's the same kind of thing. But once I realized that I either had to report this to the best of my ability and raise hell, I was going to be complicit in it. That's what really, you know, gave me the backbone to do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because otherwise, you know, if I didn't realize that silence was complicity, well, then it would have been easy enough to remain silent if it didn't mean that, if it wasn't but, you know,
Mhm.
once you know, you know.
Right.
Now, these other two public laws has to do with our credit. Now, did we, in passing these two public laws about our credit, did we outlaw the credit monopoly for Federal Reserve notes?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so we can bring that forward too, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. Now that's part of the TEEF strategy too. We're still putting that together. Now we have a declaration and a criminal. I don't know if you got to that part yet, so let me show you what we got. We have a declaration of land law regarding the birth registrations and a declaration of land law regarding the Federal Reserve notes and a criminal information notice of liability regarding them both. Now, I was trying to create a document that we can put in the hands of the public when we go to these county tours to tell them we outlawed this birth registration. You're complicit if you continue to do this. You need to notify the president, the senators, all them, that you're no longer complicit, this type of thing.
Yeah,
This-
well, what I wanted to share with you on that is that what they did was perfectly legal for their own people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not right, it's not good, but as employers, they had the right to pass these laws and to require registrations and to do all of that stuff. They just didn't have the right to, do the broad brush misapplication of their private corporate law to our general public without any, without full
disclosure, right?
disclosure. Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
So we still have to kind of draw a line between us and them and remember that 2-lane highway, or maybe we should think about it as a 3-lane highway, right?
Well-
Because they have a right to, as employers, set down their personnel policies and do all this other stuff that doesn't have anything to do with us. Where they cross the line is misapplying their law to us.
Mhm. Mhm. And not identifying who us and them are. So
Right,
they, for their laws and policies to be correct, they have to be applying these to US citizens who are employees of them.
right,
If that
Right.
person cannot show that they have a paycheck from the federal government, then that's not a US citizen, and they shouldn't have applied that law to them.
right. They should not have applied that to everybody that was being born in hospitals. They shouldn't have applied that to all the doctors. It should have, licensing for doctors should have only been applied to people that were actually consciously intending to, focus their practice serving US citizens, right?
So they need to be required, we need to require them to do another process other than birth registrations for their citizens.
No, they can register their citizens. We just have to record our people. See, once
Right.
again, it's our fault.
Yeah, but they can't,
record our people.
if we outlaw birth registrations on the land, they
Yeah.
can't do birth registration point blank, carte blanche on the land. It has to be identifiable that is intently for their US citizen. And that
Right.
US citizen has to have a paycheck from the federal government for that even to be correct. So
Right.
it's like we have to even regulate that part because we're
Well,
the American government.
we regulate it by regulating ourselves. You see, this is again, going back to the priest going, "Oy vey," saying, "It's your fault." We have the option and opportunity to record our baby's birth on the land, right? But we didn't do it. Okay, so that's what we have it thrown in our face that well, you could have recorded the baby's birth the moment it was born. Why didn't you?
So I guess, question, now that you're stating it in that way, would we then, if a mother is going into a hospital, is it in her best interest then to provide the recording document in place of the birth certificate and say, this is my instrumentality to record my child's birth in place of your birth certificate.
Well, all you need is a certification of live birth. You don't need a birth certificate. And you can even draw up your own certification of live birth, and have the doctor and the
Anesthesiologist, yep.
yeah, whoever, the nurse, whoever happens to be there, members of the family, have them sign it on the spot. And, get the, certification of live birth. And then you don't need a birth certificate. We just went through that here in Alaska with Shannon's son. They were all primed up and ready to issue a birth certificate on the little guy. And Shannon showed up there all 6'5", and and he had all of the laws and everything just organized in such a way that it was not something they could argue. And so little Clarence does not have a birth certificate. He has a certification of live birth signed by witnesses, and that's all he needs. That's all any of us need.
And was that a document that Shannon provided though, right?
He basically, he refused the birth certificate, okay? He didn't let them issue a birth certificate. He let them
Had to
issue a
provide-
certification of live birth, and he had all of his ducks in order to prove that he had everything that he needed to certify where and when and how and to whom the baby was born. And we're going to write that up as kind of a, okay, here's how we did it, so that everybody who has a baby can do that. But another way of doing it that is, to get yourself a superior claim on the name and estate is, number one, record your interest in the baby and the baby's name for the baby the day that they're born. Have somebody set up, have a parent, grandparent, auntie, uncle, whoever can do it, record that on this day and at this time, young Jennifer Lynn Emonson was born in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and record that on the Wisconsin LRO. Another way you can do it is take out a, like a small personal ad in the local paper. A daughter, Melissa Jane Marie, born to John and Elizabeth Patterson of, 101 Fillmore Street, La Crosse, Wisconsin. Just a little blurb in the paper that, you can prove that there was a public announcement. This was a living daughter born in this place and time. And that's really all you really need to prove where somebody was born. But if you don't do that, now when I was born, everybody did that. Everybody. And the newspaper, the local newspapers actually had a whole page that was devoted to births and deaths and marriages. And everybody always put a little blurb in, about this baby and this engagement and this wedding, and so that there was a public record of all the interactions and relationships that were taking place on the land and soil. And on June 6th, 1956, a daughter, Anna Maria, born to Emmett and Lavera Reisinger of Black River Falls at Memorial Hospital in Neillsville, Wisconsin, blah, 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 blah. The grandparents are, because the sister is. It's pretty hard for them to, come back from that kind of public record. So, again, they throw it in our face and they say, well, it's your fault. You didn't record the birth of this baby. Somebody had to.
Okay, well, as the government, I'm gonna say we have to do more than that, because I did that. I have a case where I had the baby in the hospital. I had 3. And I told him I didn't want a birth certificate and I'm not signing one. So I didn't. But lo and behold, and
They
I
come
want
along
Shannon to check,
afterward.
go to the vital statistics office and see if they have registered a birth certificate for the baby.
And they
I didn't
do.
give them a name or anything because they have a blank slot where the name was, because I didn't give them anything, but they have one. So they're still involved in human trafficking without you even participating.
And that's what, yeah, that's the stage where Shannon intercepted them.
Mhm.
You know, they will go ahead and they will call it Jane Doe or baby John Doe, you know. And they'll do anything to get a record, a registration that they can use and to lay claim, to place a public interest claim on your private property.
And then they tell you because we didn't record our baby. No, you registered the baby. We had nothing to do with what you just did.
Right.
But they
Well,
telling us we didn't do our part.
yeah, they're telling us that you didn't record the birth of this baby. Your government wasn't operational and wasn't doing its job. So somebody had to do something to nail down where this child was born and to whom. And so, yeah, they throw it back in our face. Well, it was your job. It's your right, but you didn't do it. You see, and the plain fact of it is that everybody has been so confused. They mistook that government, that subcontractor, as our government, and so of course they weren't doing anything like this. They weren't thinking in terms of recording the birth of their baby. They weren't thinking of their baby as a land asset. They weren't thinking about it in terms of government, right? They were just thinking of it in terms of parents. And so, I'm coming up there, I'm raging, I'm absolutely spitting tacks. I want to chew someone's arm off. And, they go, oh, well, we don't have any records. Excuse me, in this day and age of surveillance and record keeping and you're telling me you don't have any records of my son being born in this hospital? That's right, ma'am, we don't. Well, where do they go from here? We don't know.
Right.
We don't know.
Go to the vital statistics office. I bet they got a record.
Well, and they're different in every state. It's a little different. That it might be a vital statistics office in the end, but oftentimes there's some sort of bureau in between.
Oh, that's what ours is called, the Bureau of Vital Statistics. That's what ours called here in Illinois.
Yeah, yeah,
Ours
that's
is
pretty typical.
So I have these declarations I'm gonna need help on. Making sure they're worded right and stuff like that. But that's how I'm trying to bring forth the public laws with these declarations, and then having us go out there into the public and putting it into the public's hand for empower them to be. Actually, I'm trying to teach them to self-govern.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
and at the same time, we're trying to provide the services.
yes,
With the LRO and with the land recording and publishing system. And now we're going to have a new one for nothing but land patents.
let me ask this. Can we, as far as the Federal Reserve notes, outlawing that credit monopoly, how can we create paper as a mochi exchange? Can we create our own paper?
That's what we're doing. We have our own gold asset backed money, and then we have prepaid credit.
I mean, can the national who's recorded, who's now American State National and exercising that their right to have that mochi exchange, can we just like promissory notes? Now it's only promissory notes. the Federal Reserve note is a promise to pay us something. Can we give them just a piece of paper to promise another promise to pay instead of exchanging in Federal Reserve notes?
No, what we do is we issue our own certificates of prepaid credit
Okay.
and use those to, it's called redeem the national debt. And they don't want us to do that. But, okay, look at it this way. We defined the American Federation dollar as 1/10 of an ounce, right? Of gold, pure gold. So we have the AFD. The AFD is now worth, give or take pennies, $300 in FRNs, right? So when we redeem 300 of their FRNs against one of our AFDs, we reduce their debt by what, $300? And it's the same way with other kinds of transactions. If you go back and you look at the Joe's Hamburger articles, where we just go through the process where the federal employee gives us an IOU and we give him a hamburger. Well, we've already prepaid it. He's the one that hasn't paid anything but a piece of paper, right? So we, on that other end of that transaction, have what? We have prepaid credit, but we're holding what? His note as proof that we have prepaid credit.
Mhm.
The problem with this situation and the way that we get inflation of the kind that's potentially here is the realization that that note then gets passed on and someone else gives $10 worth of goods or services in exchange for this same note. See, that's where the fraud is. That's where the thing really spools up, is that, the life of a bill can be exchanged thousands of times, and every time that wheel turns, another $10 of actual goods and services are being extracted from the living people. That's how we have accrued an insurmountable debt against them. They actually have the debt, right? But we have all of this prepaid credit, not only in the amount of their debt, but in the amount, well, it's estimated, right? But it's an estimatable amount of prepaid credit above and beyond
Mhm.
their
So
debt.
back in the day, we when we was learning about sovereignty and the corporation and all this stuff, we had in our minds that the legal tender laws that they had passed allowed us to issue promissory notes, because all they were issuing was promissory notes. So is it then true that we don't have the right to issue promissory notes if our government didn't issue currency?
Well, that's a really it's an interesting thing, but you see, in the Constitution, although it requires the state to pay the contract in gold or silver, and it requires the public employees to operate on our credit. Number one, it doesn't say unlimited credit. The credit was supposed to be parceled out according to our Congress, not theirs. And the credit that they are spending is credit that belongs to us, just as well as the assets belong to us. So you see, the whole thing has been done under conditions of deceit and fraud by employees who have essentially hijacked the identity of their employers. This is a national level identity theft. Just like a credit card hacker gets hold of your identity and gets hold of your credit card and goes and spends it up to the limit, right?
Mhm.
You're sitting there going, what? I didn't spend this. I didn't go to this store. I didn't order, whatever. And the bank has to eat it because you lost your credit card and it's not your fault, right?
Mhm.
Well, it's the same thing here on a vast scale. They stole our identity as the United States of America by setting up a corporation calling itself the United States of America Incorporated. They omitted to add that little word incorporated, and as a result, everybody thought that they were us, and they were allowed to gain access to our credit.
Mhm.
So it is a national level identity theft and credit access scheme.
Mhm.
And the only thing that is at all different or unusual or exceptional about it is that they did it on such a vast scale and they did it so long ago. Because remember, in the 1860s, there were very few corporations, and nobody knew much about corporations. We didn't know about this kind of identity theft by a similarly named incorporated entity. And so they got away with it.
Mhm. So I was trying to think along the lines of speaking to the American public, if there's something that we can give them or tell them that they can do, like when I said promissory notes and we don't have our bank up yet, is it something? I know we had the mochi process. So, and I know that Federal Reserve notes, the monopoly on Federal Reserve notes is outlawed. So can the average American create some type of paper in exchange for their paper?
Well, that's what I'm telling you. Our bank is issuing prepaid credit certificates.
So it just has to come through the bank.
Yeah, we're certifying that prepaid credit in this amount exists.
Okay.
And it can be paid off against, you know, their national debt. It can be paid as credit, just like a gift card. We've already paid in goods and services, right?
Mhm.
And we
Right.
know that we've paid in goods and services over and over and over and over. And our best guesstimate is that uh, somewhere in the neighborhood of a pentillion
Mm.
dollars have been racked up just in the past 5 years.
Yeah, I can
And
count.
yeah, and this is on a worldwide basis, of course, because the stupid asses were so greedy that they decided to counterfeit the Federal Reserve note in other countries.
Mhm.
And they actually took the engraving plates and they took the printing presses and they took the ink and the paper and everything, and they have been allowing them to print Federal Reserve notes in places like China and Thailand, and Iran has its own printing press. And this was all done by the Obama administration with Obama's blessings. So they've been counterfeiting the Federal Reserve note worldwide.
Mhm.
And people have been exchanging goods and services in good faith for these Federal Reserve notes. Well, what does that do? It creates more debt for the Federal Reserve, right?
Mhm.
And it starts the same process in all these other countries, so
Mhm.
that the living people are constantly gaining this huge credit for actual goods and services. But they were just ignoring all those credits for goods and services as if nothing was received. And why is that?
Because they're crooked.
Well, it's because we're dead. We're whereabouts
Because it's our
unknown.
fault, because it's our fault.
Yeah, it's our fault. You know, whereabouts are unknown. We don't know who these creditors are. Uh, okay, so here we are. We're the creditors. Hello, the living people are the creditors, and that just really threw a big, wrench in the monkey works. But anyway, we have an insurmountable amount of credit that's owed to the living people.
Right.
And we are issuing those credit notes like vouchers, I guess you could think of it, or like a gift card. You know, when you get a gift card in the mail at Christmas time, somebody's gone down and put $50 on the gift card, and you can go to a store and use it. It's the same principle. And so that's what the prepaid credit is, and that's where the prepaid credit comes from, is from exchanging actual goods and services for IOUs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is our way of cashing in those IOUs, okay? And we've built up such a surplus. It's such a gigantic amount of credit that's owed to the living people that we could issue virtually unlimited credit to the entire population of the planet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't want to do that because it's crazy. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm this little old lady in Big Lake, Alaska, and I can tell you that I don't need infinite credit. All right. I just need enough credit to be able to buy my dog food, get a gallon of paint if I need it, you know. And when people start thinking about it and really thinking about it, they're going to realize three things. They're going to realize that money is intrinsically idolatry. It's fiction. It's not true. Okay. They're going to be able to connect that back in their minds to the kind of idolatry that goes on when you're talking about religious idolatry. Well, this was just an offshoot of an ancient system that worshipped idols. Okay. And what do you have in your hand there? You have a graven image, right? The Bible tells you about this stuff. This is a graven image in my pocket here. It's even formed using what? An engraving plate.
Mm-hmm.
This is an idol. In and of itself, it's just a piece of ugly paper. It's stiff. It's already printed on. You can't use it for note paper very well. Sure as hell isn't going to work for toilet paper unless you stand there and go for a long time. You get my point. It costs 4 cents to produce this. And yet what is the face value?
$1.
So they're making 96 cents right off the get-go, right? 96-cent profit. So you can, when I was a little kid, I used to look at this and I'd say, that's crazy. That's absolutely
Well, see, that's
crazy.
why I was like, can't we just write some piece of paper, average American,
Dan,
and hand it back and say, okay, this is an exchange because that's all you gave me. So these are promissory notes for whenever you decide you're gonna pay me, and have a system of keeping track of that.
that's exactly what we're doing, Louise. We're
Okay.
issuing the gift cards. We're issuing the gift system, right? Because it's prepaid. And I don't want to make this sound like this is a gift from the government because it's not. It's a gift from your own work and your own labor and that of your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents who are owed all of this. And so, but it's called the gift system. We're hoping people are going to get the idea that, oh, you already paid for this because you did. And but people are gonna realize that this is bogus and that it's an idol and that it's just something from a very ancient past where people worshipped golden calves, you know, little statues of Isis and all that stuff. And we're going to realize that we've grown out of that and that we don't need that anymore, and that there are other ways of exchanging value, and other ways of doing and thinking. Okay, so number one, they're going to realize that. Number two, they're going to realize that they're the source of value, because we're the ones that assign value to everything, including things like human life, which we really don't have any right to assign any value to, right? We didn't create human life, really, did we? There's another power involved here that is the creative force that organizes all of this and makes it possible. So, you know, we're going to start being humble. We're going to start realizing, you know, real basics of reality that we have not focused on before. And number three, we're going to realize that money isn't scarce. It's made to be scarce by evil people, but it's not scarce. I mean, if you think about it, here's the government with the printing press, right? How is it possible that they could have a debt? All they do is print more, right? Whatever their spending is, they print more to equal out what they owe, right? Think about it. So it's impossible for the government to have a debt. Instead, what happens, and the government is very non-productive, bear that in mind. For the most part, what they call services, we call harassment, right? They really don't do a whole lot of service that's going to garner them a reward in and of itself. So instead, what they do is they collect taxes and tariffs and customs fees and utility fees and taxes on gas and all this other stuff to basically fund themselves. And then they print the difference. And that's inflation. The difference between what they bring in taxes and what they spend is inflation. And inflation itself is just another kind of tax, right? So it's entirely fair to say that government is entirely funded by taxes and tariffs. It has any other real form of income that's valid. What they do is they increase the money supply by printing up enough to pay their debt, right? And in the process, they devalue what you're using as currency and devalue your labor and devalue the value of your goods. So all of this stuff has to be accounted for. I mean,
Let me ask you, we're gonna move to these. I know we're winding down on time. How you all doing over there? How you doing, Anna?
I'm
Boyd?
doing all right.
I'm
so
good. I'm
far.
good.
Okay. So these two documents here, the postcard, I added what you said about the breach of trust. But I kept in the breach of contract and fraud. Did you read it over to see if that was accepted yet? Acceptable? Good. We don't have to change anything else?
I like it.
Okay. Did you go over the video? I put in all the edits you said, hoping I put it the way you wanted it on the video. Did you go through those slides yet on the video to read through it to see?
I need to. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, to go through that. That the big hurdle we have is the detailed research. Now remember those 200 some page, well, actually it was 300 some pages that I did of the detailed research. So what I did with this I changed it. I changed the titles. Actually, I got a group of us to work on the detailed research. What we did was, instead of doing copy and paste of your articles, we kind of paraphrased them and chopped them down a little. So we chopped down 300 pages to 200 pages. But we have some diagrams and stuff. I like you to look at this one. Take a look at this one. You remember that one, but look at the top. You recognize any of that?
Yeah, I do.
So we took some of the images and stuff from your videos and stuff and put it in there. And then at the bottom, the guy who did all this graphic stuff,
Hmm.
I know it's very detailed, so I have beginner level information in here, advanced level information in here, depending on whatever level people are at, is in here. But at the bottom of all the documents now, we have a glossary of every section, so they can go do further research on the different topics that are talked about in the document.
Uh-huh.
That's how they're all set up now. One main thing I need, well, I particularly want you to give attention to are these charts. Now, we know the American government chart. You said there's something more that needed to be changed in here. I don't know what it is. We talked about maybe it was. Mhm,
Just a second.
mhm.
Hello, Ron. I can't talk right now. I'm in a meeting. Give me a call back, okay?
When?
Tomorrow morning?
Deal.
See you then.
There's about 4 charts. This one, I know you was talking about the Congress. I kind of changed one of the Congresses right here. You said the Congresses wasn't correct. Yeah, let me make it a little bigger. Over here under the American subcontractor, United States and Congress assembled. I don't know what else on here needs to be changed.
Okay, well, here's the British territorial subcontractor is a government. It's not really pretending to be a government. It's a subcontractor is all.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's not really pretending. It is a government. It's its own thing. We created it, but it isn't our government. It's a subcontractor of our government, and it's operating under a constitution, right?
Mhm.
Now, here's where the big problem is. The Constitution of the United States of America was the original federal republic, right?
Over here. Mhm.
They had kind of a mix mash of responsibilities that were primarily land jurisdiction. We do have sea jurisdiction, but the delegated authorities that they got were mostly land. You got it right there. I just want you to know that most of what the federal republic was supposed to do was land jurisdiction stuff.
Okay. Mhm.
The other thing that you need to understand, and this is becoming more and more crucial. I mean, it may not go into this particular format, right? But we're having a huge brouhaha over the Organic Act of 1871,
Mhm.
where the February 2nd, 1871, the U.S. Territorial Congress, U.S. Congress, right? Told exactly that kind of, just a second.
Mhm. Mhm.
Esther, can you call me back a little later or tomorrow? Because I'm in a meeting right now. Sure, bye-bye. Everybody trying to get in touch with me. It's typical.
Can I ask a question here? I thought that the Federal Republic held the Constitution for the United with a lowercase u, and then it was States of America.
Right.
So over here,
It's right there, the Constitution for the United States of
oh,
America.
it is. Yes, I see it there. Okay, I didn't see it up top there. Yeah.
February 2nd, 1871. Remember, I told you they were going to try to pull a claim on abandonment on us?
Yeah.
Well, they pulled a claim on abandonment on the original Federal Republic. And they basically said, well, you know, we're going to claim all the assets and corporations of the Federal Republic. And they began operating as if they were the Federal Republic. And they just, these other two foreign subcontractors rushed in, took over the name, took over the corporations, took over the assets of the Federal Republic. And that's why they're trying so desperately to you know, concoct a new Federal Republic that they can retain control of. Because otherwise they have to roll all of the assets of the original Federal Republic back to us, which is what should have happened at the time. And would have happened if they hadn't been so busy characterizing our Federation officers as rebels and prosecuting us.
Anna,
So-
when you talk about the corporations that they're trying to acquire or take possession of, what type of corporations are under the Federal Republic if it's been inoperable for over 160 years?
Well, they started out with the US corporations that existed back then. See, they had already created United States corporations prior to the Civil War. And, you know, things like Remington, Colt, the original nitroglycerin producers, these huge corporations that produced armaments, tobacco products, anything to do with alcohol, tobacco, or firearms was incorporated.
Hmm.
And so
Well,
when they,
even, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, so when these guys in the middle, pretending to be a government, British territorial subcontractor, says, oh, well, it's been 10 years. Guess we're going to just claim all of this stuff over here and all the powers and the names and the trademarks and the corporations that were developed by the actual Federal Republic. We're just going to claim all that. And we're going to operate as the United States from now on.
So
Now
I
you-
guess, yeah, go ahead, Louise.
So you did tell me that the United States Federal Republic was incorporated, wasn't it?
No,
Okay. So
no. The actual Federal Republic was not incorporated because it actually created incorporations. It chartered corporations as U.S. corporations prior to
So-
the Civil War.
so was the Virginia Republic incorporated? Which part of this was incorporated?
The actual parent corporation doing business as the United States was incorporated. States of America was incorporated.
So up the Confederation was the one that was incorporated up here?
The way this works is that the Union of States created okay, now you have to put your mindset into from the standpoint of the Union of States, right? from the standpoint of the Union states, they created a federation of states, but with respect to them, it was a confederation. They also created a confederation of states, right? So if you're standing in your Union States character on the soil, from your perspective on the Union States, and you're standing there on the soil, you created a first confederation and you created a second confederation. So far as you're concerned, both the Federation and the Confederation are confederations because your union is the federation in the situation. Think about it. Think of these things going together like bookends. You have a federation and you have a confederation. You have a federation and you have a confederation. But from our standpoint, we're a federation of states within our own entity, within our trust company, our holding company for the states of the union. And the language is a little bit queer for us to understand too, because, you know, as far as the Union states are concerned, they're the states and the states of the Union belong to them. That little word of, meaning apart from or belonging to. So a lot of this depends on where you're standing. You know, what side of the fence are you on? Are you looking north or are you looking south? So
So,
you'll
so in the British territorial, when they say the state of Virginia incorporated, do we have the same type of thing in the Federal Republic or in the states in our confederation as incorporated?
no,
No. Okay.
no, because what they were doing, they were acting as the chartering agent. They were the ones that were making the corporations, so that the American Federal Republic was acting as an incorporated entity. It was acting as a parent corporation, and then it was spinning off all of these franchises. So, for example, the United States that was formed in 1787 could spin off a version of itself as a parent corporation and then have all these franchises like Remington Incorporated or Colt Revolvers Incorporated or Westinghouse Incorporated or the Southern and Pacific Railroad Incorporated or,
What was the benefit of doing it like that?
the reason they did this, and this is something, a cautionary tale for us all. There are certain things, certain activities, especially within the realm of alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, that are so dangerous that if the corporation had to face the full liability for their product, they couldn't possibly stay in business. So, for example, firearms. If you were held liable for your product, you couldn't stay in business unless you were incorporated. Unless the
that makes
public took a share of the responsibility, you couldn't possibly afford to put your money into it and risk that, plus your home and your livelihood and everything else.
Right.
So the idea here is that certain kinds of activities would be incorporated and they would have the benefit of the corporate veil for the investors. So, for example, let's just take Winchester Arms as an example. It's a US corporation. Why is it a US corporation? Because it was involved in producing firearms. It's regulated, right? Okay, so you have a regulated entity and it is called a public corporation. Why? Because if it goes bankrupt, then the public picks up the tab and closes it down and has that responsibility. So, Winchester Incorporated was alive and well and functioning before the Civil War as a corporation. And it was incorporated by the United States, the Federal Republic doing business as the United States Incorporated.
Mhm.
And so it started out with the regulated substances, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. It started out as a way of encouraging investment in alcohol, tobacco, and firearms for people that were otherwise too afraid of the liability issues to invest. So it made it possible for all these private investors to come in and invest in something like Winchester Incorporated and not worry about losing their homes and their private fortunes. They could just invest whatever they wanted in the company and have only that much at risk. That was the beauty of incorporation. If they went bankrupt, the public would pick up the tab and the people that were investors would be held harmless to a great extent, and their private fortunes and homes would be protected.
Mhm.
Well, Anna, when the British territorial usurped upon the Federal Republic's assets, like these corporations,
Yep.
like, if the investors, like, who allowed that to happen?
The Congress, the U.S. Congress allowed all of this. This would not have happened without them. They took over the Federal Republic February
Oh, they were the
2nd.
new Congress. We didn't have a Federal Republic Congress anymore.
Right, they began running what appeared to be our Congress, but wasn't. It was actually a little bit more complex than that.
And the people didn't know that this was taking place, that their government was being impersonated because of the Civil War. There was a lot of chaos and confusion, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, because
exactly. And notice here you've got the Federal Republic functioning as what? The United States.
yeah.
And over here on the other side, you have the Papist municipal subcontractor. And what is it functioning as? Oh, the United States. Same name exactly.
How did that happen?
Well, it started out, as you can see, with the municipal government being considered a subcontractor of the Federal Republic.
Mm. So not a subcontractor of the Federation.
Right, you're talking about a subcontractor of a subcontractor. And today, see, the Federal Republic was subcontracting with the municipal subcontractor for postal service.
Mhm, mhm.
Nowadays, we have the postal service, and then we have the actual post office, and the postmaster actually wears, I think it's 7 different hats.
That's another reason why this happened, is because these people wear too many hats. Even George Washington, when you talked about George Washington being the president of the British territorial and then the president of the municipal and not the president of the American, how are we supposed to know who's who and what hat they're wearing.
Right. And on top of that, the real president is the president of the Federation of States. So, you know, it, but the word president is always a business office. It's never a office of state. It's always a business office. And so they just use similar names to seats and some of these other little fandangos like claimed on abandonment and taking over the assets of the Federal Republic. They used all these different things basically to bamboozle people. I mean, it's a fraud scheme. That's why we call it the Great Fraud.
Okay. So for this document, this chart, well, I see two things in my limited knowledge that I would question. Well, you said pretending to be a government isn't correct, but we could say pretending to be our government. Would that be correct?
Well, but
Probably say a foreign government, right?
Well, I
They-
mean, with the word pretending, what are they pretending to be?
well, it's not so much as that they're pretending to be, it's that they're omitting the truth of what they are.
Right.
You know, they're not letting us know that they're a subcontractor and that they have a contract they're supposed to fulfill. Just like Mr. Trump right now is deep in the throes of trying to settle the United States corporation bankruptcy, but he isn't telling you that, is he? He's making it look like this was some big jihad of his own that they're going out and auditing all these branches of the government. Well, no. No, that's not what's happening at all. Whoever had been elected president this last round would be doing exactly the same thing, and for the same reason. They have to do this audit before they can settle the bankruptcy of that corporation. And we just found out that yes, all of our efforts to force the municipal government back in its box have been successful. But now you've got this wonderful, bizarre situation where now we have the state of California legislature, all caps, located in Washington, District of Columbia. So they've taken all the municipal legislatures and relocated them in Washington, D.C., which is they're in compliance to the word, but not the spirit, not the intent.
And I think, and Boyd told me, I wish, is he there? He was saying that he heard, what about that information? You said that somebody sent some mail to the Washington DC and they said it was closed.
Yes, a guy from Arkansas told me he mailed something to President Trump to the White House, and it was returned to him as permanently closed.
Interesting.
So,
Well, the
don't know,
White House, started out as the resident of a Catholic archbishop.
Yeah, it looks like a building for somebody like that.
Yeah, it was part of the whole Holy Roman Empire thing. And then it became the president of the United States municipal government's residence in the District of Columbia. If you think about this like Russian nesting dolls, you have the District of Columbia, and then within the District of Columbia, you have Washington, D.C., right? And within Washington, D.C., you've got this little portion cordoned off around Capitol Hill, within the Capitol boundary stones, it's called, that is actually where the municipal government is supposed to operate.
Isn't that where the White House is? Is that where the White
Uh,
House is?
No, the Capitol boundary stones are right around the Capitol building, and that complex that takes in the Capitol at the far end of the mall.
Mhm.
So they were supposed to be operating out of that little defined area, and it looks to me like they are, again, withdrawing the municipal power back into the District of Columbia and to Washington, D.C., which is what their contract says. But what I find ridiculous is that they should never have been in California. There should have been no state of California municipal legislature.
Right.
And so now they're still trying to give that credibility while operating in the District of Columbia.
So Anna, do you think that all these municipalities and all of our towns, do you think that they're going to continue to operate, or do you think we're going to start to see some vacancies take place?
I think you're going to see so much fraud and so many different entities trying to claim that they own your land and that they own this, that, and the other thing. And so many different entities from the District of Columbia trying to claim that they're the legislature of the municipal state of Maryland. And, they're just going to try to reboot and regroup and keep the same old scheme going. And we're going to have to be on our toes, and we're going to have to call them out on it every step of the way.
Mhm.
On here where it says private persons was the other thing. Is that correct? Private persons under the Union of States? Right there? Or should it say private people?
Well, you do have a person in the sense of you have a body, okay? Your body isn't you, okay? In a sense, it's you, but it's really what you're clothed with. It's like a suit of clothes or a spacesuit. Your consciousness inhabits this mortal coil, okay? And so you do have what's called a corpse, and it can be a living corpse or a dead corpse, right?
Mhm.
Now, one of the great traps is that they call this a natural person, but they don't stipulate whether it's a living or a dead natural person. So natural person translates as a natural person is a dead body, a literal corpse, okay?
So is person correct? Like even in the public law, you have a small p for person, a capital P for person. Who is this person? Is this a land jurisdiction person, a soil jurisdiction person?
That would be a superior woman trust. That would be a corpse, a literal corpse, okay? Or that might be a private person who
So,
doesn't have any attachment to a government.
okay, so private persons that don't have any attachment to government would be correct vernacular for the Union of States.
Right, because see, they're state nationals.
Mhm.
We're not talking there about state citizens.
Okay. Mhm.
Hey, Louise, if you're staying on this document, and we're trying to figure out wording for the pretending to be a government, I mean, you could put there pretending to be the federal republic, right? Because that's what they're pretending to be, isn't it?
That's
I
what they,
think that
that's what they're about to pretend to be.
Well, I think they've been pretending that since 1871, but I think I'd just take that purple line out and because
And
you
leave it
have
as,
British territorial subcontractor, Pappas municipal subcontractor.
Mhm.
And, you know, the needs to be reconstructed part, I think it's good the way you've got it with the pink up there and it says needs to be reconstructed, needs to be reconstructed.
Mhm.
Um,
should we put employees? Instead of pretending to be a government, we could put employees. Right? Because technically there are employees.
or
It
you
does-
could put British Crown Corporation. You know, where it says British territorial subcontractor, because it is now a British Crown Corporation.
Mhm.
And you could put municipal corporation, instead of pretending to be a government, you could say, British Crown Corporation above the British territorial subcontractor, and you could have municipal corporation above the Pappas municipal subcontractor. What do you think?
Well, then that would pose a question in my mind, then what is this one, American subcontractor? Is it a corporation? Because it would not be related to needs to be reconstructed. It
Right.
takes my mind to something else.
Well, see, what happens is up here, the states of America
Mhm.
is a commercial entity by definition. It's operating in global air jurisdiction. So here's your parent corporation,
Mhm.
but it's a corporation. It's not incorporated.
Mhm.
And there's the distinction.
Mhm. I
So
would just take it out and leave it and don't put nothing up there.
okay.
Mhm. Okay. What I need, I'm getting tired myself, y'all. Um,
Oh
um,
no, tell us it's not true. You actually get tired, Louise?
I don't believe her.
I don't either.
there's other charts that were created that I really need some help on. Two of them. Let me show you this one. There's this one. I'm gonna open this one up, and then I'm gonna open up. Where's my timeline?
Right there, you passed it. Oh, there you go.
But it shouldn't. Oh, it's this one. It should say. Okay, this one is kind of little. Let me see. This is for course 202. You know, not the 102 course. I was trying to put in here the jurisdictional differences. And I need help to make sure that it's correct. You're not gonna have time to go look through this right now. But this is this type of charts like this in the detailed research, I would need to go over with you or just to send you and you say, nah, this is in the wrong place or this is in the right place. And I tried to color code them, but now you know, I know the color codes may be a problem trying to understand, you know, because it's not black.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Well, it really only bothers me when it's white on a background,
Mhm.
especially if it's white letters on a background that isn't real deep and bright.
Mhm.
You know, if it's a dark blue and it has white letters, I can read that fine. But I do have trouble with white letters on, say, a light purple background. There's just not enough contrast.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's just me.
This one and this one, I did a restoration timeline that I need to go over with you to make sure I got that right.
Okay.
Now those are the charts themselves is the major things that I'm not quite sure on, but you wanted to look at 300 pages of stuff before we launched this.
Well, you know, it's important because I'm going to have to defend it.
Mhm.
And it's hard sometimes to keep track of all the details, no matter how hard we try. I mean, there are times when even I get confused, and I've been at this 50 years. So, you know,
So on that note, let's wind it down here. So it's taken what, a year to actually get a meeting with you. So what we wanted to propose to you is for us to have a regular meeting as
until we get it done.
I think we lost Luis.
not
Louise
only
left.
just me, but the main
That's
player.
it.
Lost me. I can
Okay.
see
You cut
y'all.
out,
Can y'all
Louise.
see me?
Yeah, now
you
now
see
you're
me now?
back. Now you're
Okay.
back.
Okay. So what I need, what we wanted to proposition you with is for us to have a regular, like, business meeting, our American government business meeting, so we can get business taken care of, because a lot of things on the international scene is being stagnated among the leadership that's running this. I shouldn't say leadership, but should I? Well, yeah, well, we're in international C too. In the leadership, we're getting stagnated and trying to get things restored here. And I want to go I want to go a little bit further, not only on the international scene, but also on the national scene. I know that, well, we all know that our government is on the county level. The government is the United States. That's our government. Everything else is instrumentalities serving them or serving the county. So I want to bring in the international and the national leaders to have a business meeting with the fiduciary regularly, maybe once a month to start with. We were thinking maybe take one of those Thursdays you got with the coordinator training and give it to us as a business meeting. And we can hash out things like this and things that other players are having problems with.
The Continental Marshal would be there. You know, Joe is on board. He's the one recommended also. You know, and just other people of the Federation, maybe Terry.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? God knows I have far too much work on my desk. But why don't we, for right now, let's make a commitment to meet again, same time, same station next Friday.
Okay.
Is that doable?
Yeah.
Friday,
did-
good?
When did you say, Anna? Next Friday?
That would be what, the
21st?
21st? Yep.
Okay, I could try to make that happen.
I want to
Yeah, I
give you
think-
a quick update. Arkansas, they mailed to the Federal Appeals Court the documents for their pleading, and she had them tracking them. She was tracking them, and it left Little Rock and got lost. Go figure. So they still haven't gotten the paperwork. So she resent it FedEx, and she's tracking it again to see if it makes it there. And de facto has stopped her from contacting Cheryl at all. They can't even talk to her anymore.
I wonder if this is being investigated by DOJ.
I sent I CC'd you in the email to Cash and asked they need to. We asked them to investigate immediately. Like it's ridiculous.
Yep.
So, but
A lot
that's
of
where they
this
at with
stuff
that.
is ridiculous.
Yes, yes, that's insane. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. You start, she's the literal embodiment of no good deed goes unpunished.
yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm,
it's horrible.
mhm. So our next meeting is Friday, then 3 to 5 your time on the 21st.
Just 1 second here.
All right. Mhm.
Well, now this is a good one.
Hmm.
Somebody has changed my calendar. Well, and I see why. We got the same lineup of dates. Okay. I have to just take a moment. Okay, there. Now, next Friday is the 21st. We're gonna go for 3 to 5, right?
That works for you.
Fine. Mm.
You know, the only way that I absolutely do keep track of everything is if I write it down on an old-fashioned calendar above my, you can
That's
put
how I
all the
like it
bells,
too.
you can put all the bells and whistles you like. You can have all these different, reminders and calendars on the phone. And, nothing really jogs my visual memory like seeing it written on the calendar.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, I homeschool my youngest son, and I teach at his homeschool co-op, and I'm teaching a debate class. And I just we just learned in one of the chapters, it's a classical education curriculum, but that back in the day, during, like Socrates and Plato, um, and they didn't have like, books, a lot of books and different things to learn from, that they had to memorize everything.
Mm.
And I thought it was so very interesting because the perspective is that we are getting so advanced in our technology and our brains are diminishing because it's hard. I even noticed for myself, because I have to I put all the phone numbers in the phone and just click, on somebody's name and call them. I don't even have to memorize their phone number anymore. But, it goes back to that old saying, when you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So instead of getting smarter, we're getting dumber as the technology is advancing. So
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. My XO, Harold Hines, broke his arm this past week. And so I needed to be in contact with him to find out how he was doing and, what was going on, what I had to pick up extra that he had been working on that he couldn't work on, all that stuff. I couldn't remember his actual phone number to save my soul. I had to sit there and go for, like 2 hours before I could remember his actual phone number.
Yeah, but you got a great excuse.
yeah, there's a lot of other great things up there, Anna. So
Yeah, so don't worry about that. You're all right.
Bit by
So,
bit.
I have just a few questions that I keep getting hammered on with this project, and I just want to, ask really quickly before we end because I know it's very late. Um, two of the concerns that some of the people on the International Outreach think tank, so they're concerned with, number one, the claim your inheritance. I don't have a problem with it. And I keep saying, well, your inheritance is everything, all your assets. But some people think that by saying claim your inheritance, that we're alluding to some kind of monetary gain. And they don't want to give people that kind of impression. Now, I'm just trying to pass the word because, again, we're trying to get everybody's opinions, and more importantly, Anna, yours. And so it'll be helpful, because we've been kind of going back and forth on this. There's so many, as you know, there's so many opinions. But I actually love the claim your inheritance because it really will grab people's attentions, number one. And number two, it's the truth. We are trying to rescue them from the fraud and the stealing of all their wealth. So I don't know. What is your take on that?
Um, it is an inheritance. That is the truth. Now, I understand people being concerned that we're going to have a whole bunch of freeloaders and freebooters and, everybody wanting to pile on. for the wrong reasons and without learning anything, you know. I do understand that. The problem I have here is that, number one, it is the truth, it is their inheritance. And number three, unless we pull these rabbits out of our hats, when the other old system goes for broke, which it's doing, they won't have a way of exchanging value and being able to trade. You know, people won't have what they need to live. The inflation will drive them down into, you know, starvation. And so, you know, you can't deny them their inheritance under such, you know, conditions. But the other part of it is that we don't have the total recoupment of that inheritance, not even close. What
Right.
we've got is enough to start out and develop as an organic function of recoupment. Okay, so you know, we've got 2 trillion in gold recouped. That's enough to start a monetary system for the number of people we have. Okay.
Yep.
But it's far from what we are owed, and it's far from what we will ultimately recoup. It's just a starting point.
Right.
And so there's it's not like we have it all here in our hand and can just split it up, you know. It's not like that. It's a much more organic process.
Yeah, and I
so-
think I love your explanation tonight of you know, why we're in the position that we're in is that from the subcontractor's viewpoint is that, you know, well, we were just stepping in for you because you were missing in action. And, you know, you kind of let it get to this point. And that's actually a really good point because when we're, you know, trying to rescue our fellow neighbors and family members and friends, we need to somehow get them to understand the severity of the issue, and get them to take it serious enough for them to want to help out. And so, you know, it's an interesting time that we're living in, with challenges that we need to somehow overcome. So I think that the conclusion is possibly that this is a perfect name, you know, possibly for this website. And I guess the other thing is that we want to make sure that it's going to be linked somehow with TASA, because we don't want to be viewed as something separate of TASA. And so is that something that we'll be able to do?
Sure. It's Saturday night and the boys are watching something raucous, having popcorn and beer, you know. But anyway, no, there's no reason why we can't be working with TASA, and TASA has some great stuff coming up that you'll be able to, you know, benefit from too.
Well, because I think one of the concerns, Anna, is that this is going to be viewed as something separate and could confuse people even further. And so we want to make sure that, you know, if this is a project that we're rolling out from the, you know, from the soil jurisdiction, right, from the people, that this is something that's going to be linked, you know, maybe as you link, you know, you have the PKTF up there, but, you know, on TASA, that this would be a separate link so that people will identify us as a part of TASA.
Okay, let me see. You mean, let's see if I can go. You mean putting a link on the TASA's website?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could just have it, you know, there as the American International Outreach Project or something of that nature that,
Yes,
you know.
if you got to defend it, you got to know the name. It's called the American the American Government's Resurgence Project.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, and you know, everything else we can save for next time because it's truly late and we don't want to overstay our welcome here with you, Anna. We want to respect your time and, you know, allow you to rest.
What's that? What is this strange word of which you speak?
But let me ask this before we go, Anna. Now, certain things you'll have to read and tell me if it's okay. So before the meeting, we're not gonna read in the meeting, like reading over the video slides, or reading over any of the charts or the detailed research. Those things you won't be able to do in the meeting. Are you gonna start reading some of that and tell me something in between time?
Well, that page that you had up, why don't you just send that to me again tonight? The one with all the questions and, you know,
Okay, all right, and I'll
why
send
don't
you
you do that?
okay.
I'm telling you guys right now that I'm gunning to get the banking done because that's so important to the welfare of everybody concerned. I mean, us individually and our families, but also our country, because, you know,
Yeah, definitely.
we have to have funds. We have to have a means of trade. We need to be organized and have that part of our giddy up functioning. And we're close. We're very close now. We've got some really big deals that are going down this coming week. So
All right, well, we're going to keep you in our prayers and keep that that specific thing that you're working on in our prayers as well.
it's a biggie.
Yeah.
It will directly affect 6 countries. So, and ours is one. But anyway, I think that absent that, I've got nothing else that that's my focus for the next week, guys, and that's why. But any other spare time I get, I'll put to this, okay?
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Anna.
Appreciate that.
We appreciate you. You
and
have
for
a good
me-
night's rest.
And for me personally, if people don't have control of their own money, they can't be free.
Right,
So it's ultimately
Mhm.
we have to get that done.
Yes.
right, right. And, you know, we've worked so hard, we've overcome so many obstacles that, you know, now that I'm like a horse smelling water, you know. My attention is focused on getting this done and getting it actually deployed and getting the wheels turning so that people can use their AFNs and they can access their credit. And, you know, so it's a real focus right now. But I will, you know, I also see the need for getting this done. It's been hanging, I know. And we need to get this done too, so.
All right. But thanks,
Look forward
Anna,
to
for
it.
making the time.
Yeah,
We'll
thank
see
you so
you
much, Anna.
next
Good
week.
night.
Thank
Good
you.
night, guys. Take
Thanks,
care.
Tammy, for making the
Mhm.
time.
Of course.
Yes.
All right,
All
have a
right,
good
y'all.
weekend,
Hey,
everybody.
ladies.
Take
Have a
Y'all
good
care
too.
night,
now.
y'all.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Oh, let me stop screen share.